Welcome to Keep the Hotel Empty. Today we've kept the hotel empty to welcome in aspiring comedian and survivor of life,
Yes.
Tucker Lenora. Tucker, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, I'm so stoked to have you here. It's like a weird Sarasota full circle
Yes.
moment for me. You were definitely one of the first people I met here, so it's very cool to be able to sit down and talk with you like however many years after the fact and so much road in between.
Yeah, it's true. There's a lot of history and a lot of collaborations and a lot of community that we like stand on the shoulders of.
Right.
I keep coming back to Sarasota because I found such a community here, even though it is difficult price-wise to live here. I can't escape, or I can't like lose the friendships that I made here. So I keep coming back.
Yeah,
for sure.
it's got a cool gravitational pull to it in a weird way, even amongst all like the building and things that are changing. I think the underbelly's still here a bit.
The heartbeat of the creatives is still pumping, and that's what I come back for.
I was going to say, I think that's what drew people like you and I here in the first place. So as long as I can still identify with that, I'm cool with it. So I'm very grateful to have a conversation that's rooted in that or has that in its underpinnings somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So I know you sent me along some things that I didn't know about you, and one of the things is kind of, I normally ask people to press rewind, but I don't need to in your case. I already know. I want you to take me back to being what you described as a Navy brat born in Jacksonville, because I feel like that's a good headpin to a life that sets up to be able to tell some funny stories.
Yeah, for sure. I was born at NAS, which is the Naval Air Station, and my dad was in the Navy. And my parents were really kind of compelling figures because my mom was an opera singer, and she was 5 foot. And my dad was 6'4" and a Navy guy and super thin, like could barely make weight because he was so tall. And so they were just this weird couple. I guess they met in a gay bar, which is ironic. And then they both were like tricky people. She was a little bit of a con artist, and so was he. And they fell in love and like didn't con each other. They just basically were like, oh man, they fell in love. But then I was born and he got transferred to Philly. So we moved right away from Jacksonville to Philly as when I was young. And then my dad, not being, I don't exactly know what his intention was, but he basically told my mom, like, I love you too much to watch you drink too much. So he was like, you're leaving. But she had a baby and she was pregnant. So we headed back to Florida and settled in Manatee County and Parrish. And then...
And you were how old at that time?
3 and a half. Yeah. So I've been in Florida for most of my childhood. And then my brother was born, and you know, I went to a bunch of different schools, so it was funny when I taught high school for a period of time because I never went to high school. I was homeschooled. So I was completely making it up as I go along. I was like Googling curriculum because it was one of those schools that's like, just make up the curriculum. Just, you know, whatever you think the kids need to learn. And I was like, perfect. No book, nothing. Okay, here we go. So, I had a bunch of different series of events that happened, and then I ended up at 17 and 18 wanting to go to seminary.
What do you think prompted that?
Truthfully, I think that I wanted to compensate for my mom. My mom had been such a destructive force in my life and other people's lives that I really felt like I could do something good in this world and that would like counterbalance, which was a very 18-year-old way to think about your future.
Yeah, of course, of course. Me versus the world always sounds good.
It was so earnest. I picked the strictest seminary, and then it was in Grantville.
Did you do that purposefully?
I did because this is like a weird tick. I genuinely thought that if I picked the strictest school, the meanest school, the like most totalitarian, that I would mature faster, that I would like suffer and then like have more to offer. Again, very interesting perspective for an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
And so I did. I went to that school and it was very difficult. And then I finished it and decided that my worship leader had a really cool accent from South Africa. So I would move to South Africa, and I got a visa for 17 months. And I moved there by myself at 21 to help with my seminary degree. And it was 10 years after apartheid. The country was war-torn. It was rebuilding. And here I am, like a 21-year-old, so naive, straight from parish. Hey, guys, I've got a red balloon, and Jesus loves you. And, like, that'll fix everything, right? And it was such a clash of, like, theoretical belief and, like, difficult circumstances that you can't just apply maybe a Western Band-Aid to. I was counseling the kids at the high school, and I wasn't a social worker. By that point, I was 20, 21, and I had no life skills with the wherewithal. So I came back from South Africa, no longer religious.
How long were you there for?
I was there for 7 months. And I don't know how deep you want to go. Like, I don't know if
I as deep as you want to go. I'm curious about that because I find that to be a very interesting endeavor, because not only do you have to commit to the ethos portion of the show, but you're willing to commit to the discipline to see through doing some good with the ethos.
Yeah, no, I really did have every intention of practically being a missionary in the pure sense of helping and being an assistance. And I did not find a structure in which to plug in because my skills were drawing, and reading the Bible, and playing songs on my guitar. And none of those were like super applicable to the country in their war-torn status. So my roommate, we lived in a commune, which was a really cool concept that lots of other countries have. It's just like locked bedroom doors and shared common spaces, and you don't have any connection to the people, but they're all around the same age. And it's just a cheaper way of living. And we were robbed, which is wild to me because we were like poor. And
how soon after you were there did that happen?
Probably 3 months, but it's just super common. Like everybody gets robbed, and the disparity makes you like, I get it. I get why we're getting robbed, because most of the white people live in mansions that are bigger than Bird Key. And then you have shacks, and you have very little in between. And so you have these people who are starving, and they're looking at these like Rolls Royces, and they're like, what do I have to lose? So I had a lot of compassion for it. It just was making me confront a lot of my beliefs. And then my roommate was special needs, and he actually committed suicide while I was living in the building in the commune. He did that while I was living there. And that also challenged a lot of my beliefs, because I had gone there to help. And here this person was that was suffering like right under my nose. And like, I didn't have the skills to actually be effective because I had never tried to make myself happy.
Right.
I had spent so much effort thinking my purpose is to serve others. And I didn't realize that well is not forever. You know, you got to replenish it.
Yeah, well, that whole putting on your oxygen mask first thing is
absolutely.
That is a tough lesson to learn.
It's one I'm still learning, and I'm 42 now, and I'm listening to Carl Jung all the time, and I'm like, the power of letting go and letting things come into your life and leave, and not kind of being so fixated on your idea of what's going to happen, which is really hard when you like control.
Yeah.
Or you're trying to make things work a certain way, but
stupid temporary nature of everything.
Yes, exactly. Impermanence. So I did. I came back from South Africa, no longer religious, which I think expedited something that would have naturally progressed if I'd stayed in the States, but would have taken much longer.
Well, that's a pretty poignant moment, like that
Huge.
moment. Was it like a moment, or did this happen in like when you left South Africa, you knew it was over? Were you still in South Africa?
I was
We were
in
like,
South Africa, and I talked to the people I was volunteering for, like the church that had sponsored me, and I basically was like, so I don't know if I believe in God anymore. And they're like,
brutal.
okay, well, we don't need your services anymore. And I was like, cool, I'm going home now. So it was very definitive and very polite, but like, I've learned what I came here to learn, and I'm very humbled. And I came back to the States and took community college, and then eventually went to Ringling. And
So when you come back
Yeah.
now, sans religious beliefs, do you feel like you're lost, or you got to rebuild, or did you
Yeah.
think like, oh my God, the world is my oyster now?
No, I was totally lost. I really felt like previous to that experience, I had all my beliefs plugged in.
Right.
The structure had filled in the blanks for a lot of things. And even though I was an extremely active believer, if I was pro-life, I was standing outside of clinics. But when I wasn't a believer, I was also just as active. You know what I mean? So if I'm pro-choice, I'm just as active in those beliefs. But I have this distinct memory of being at Memories, which is a lovely memory spot for me, aptly named. And I tried to order a white Zinfandel. And my friend, who was a little more world wise than me, was like, oh my God, shut up. She's not having a white Zinfandel. She's having an Absolute and soda. And I was like, okay. So I like start drinking my first liquor drink, and I'm just like, okay, I'm like trying to find my way. And I did lose my whole community because I had grown up with people that believed and gone to church. And so I really had to start from scratch. And so that was in Parrish, Manatee County, Bradenton area where I had all my connections. And then I decided that I was going to go to Ringling. So I moved to Sarasota, and that's where I really rebuilt.
And was that decision just based around the fact that drawing was a constant?
Drawing was for sure a constant. Unfortunately, I do regret going to an art school just because of the economy, and I feel like I could have set myself up a little bit better for the economy. But drawing is something I will always do. It is something that is meditative for me. I'm always going to be an artist, but I just would like to be a banker Monday through Friday or have banker money Monday through Friday, pay
That's
for the
fair.
nice supplies and all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it did. It was a very big moment coming back and looking around and seeing how things didn't fit anymore and how things didn't apply to me in a resonating way, and how I took a bunch of philosophy and ethics classes that really influenced me. It used to be called MCC, now it's State College of Florida, but Manatee Community College, I can't speak highly enough about that college. I think it is such a hidden gem. I think the quality of the professors there are incredible, or at least they were in 2003. Yeah, and philosophy was amazing because it just opened up so many.
Did it seem really dichotomous for you, having come from a more theological, philosophical underpinning, to see theology in a more open pantheon? Was it like, oh my God, holy shit, there's a whole other side to this coin?
I just felt deceived, to be honest. I felt really, really deceived, and sold a story that benefited the people that told me that story. So I felt very desperate and curious to find things that resonated, because I am a questioning person. And so when I was in the church, I was very questioning, even though I was devout. and that wasn't encouraged. And so that was confusing as a young person. You know, I'd even try to talk to my aunt, one of my aunts, about abortion and say like, hey, here's how I feel. Can we talk about this? And she was like, absolutely not. That's a really impolite topic. And I was like, who am I supposed to talk to? Like, if I am wrong, who's going to tell me? And if I can't peacefully have a discourse about it, how am I supposed to orient myself in any type of like, I believe this because this resonates with this and this makes sense in this capacity. So
yeah, that kind of rigidity just doesn't make for a hell of a lot of growth.
Yeah, and I try to be different about that, especially with my daughter. I want to have that dialogue be something that even if we disagree about something, that we can talk about it so that she has those skills.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, it was a huge moment coming back from South Africa and
so you're in
college.
memories, literally trying to find your footing.
Mm-hmm.
Where does this start to go? Does Sarasota start to feel like home right away, or?
Yes, it was very welcoming. I met Shannon Fortner very early on, very fortunately. I found the brownstone when it was still around, which was amazing. Rosemary wasn't gentrified yet, and it was really sketch.
I was going to say it was definitely a different spot.
Sketch.
Yeah.
Like the bartender would come out and she was super butch and I had a massive crush on her and she would like chase the homeless people away and we'd be like, oh, thank you. You saved us.
Yeah.
And we'd go into the little bar and they served beer and I didn't even drink beer at the time. I just was so hungry for community and finding my people and I did find them. New College was such a special space and if I had to do it again, I'd probably have gone there. That community was really welcoming to me. I was quite a bit older than my class at Ringling. Most people were 18 and by the time I started at Ringling, I was 24, which 24 to 18 is a pretty big difference. Plus I had just gone through a lot of adult
you had
experiences, a lot of life in comparison to 18-year-olds who'd grown up pretty wealthy. So I didn't network the way that most people try to in art school because I just was like, these kids are eating their boogers. Like, what do I want to like network with? They're like so excited about beer for the first time. I was definitely gravitating towards New College, but then I graduate from art school and I decide I've got to find the right city to be an artist in. So I go back to Asheville at one point, which is my favorite place to live. And then I traverse to San Francisco because at this point I'm dating women exclusively. So I make the Mecca to the gay Holy Land. And it was funny because I got featured on the San Francisco lesbian Tumblr, and I was like, I've made it. I'm a real girl now. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, no, it was a fun city. I would be exhausted at first just because it was so stimulating. I'd lived in New York, but I hadn't like had my freedom in New York, and so it was part of the seminary when I was in New York, and I actually got relocated because I went to a coffee shop by myself, and that was against the rules.
How dare.
And I was just like, it's so anonymous. Like, everybody's new every hour. This is so cool. And
yeah, that is some of the thing. Talk to me a little bit about that experience when you get to a new place and you can feel so anonymous and you feel that pantheon of limitlessness.
Yeah. No, I did feel that for the brief period of time when I was interning for my seminary degree in New York City, and our job was to proselytize from 8 to 5.
Oof.
Hey, how's it going? Do you want to hear about my best friend?
Yeah.
And people in Central Park would just be like, smoking or eating on their lunch or just living their life. And they're just like, what is this frizzy haired girl like trying to tell me? And I'm like grinning like a golden retriever. It was ridiculous.
That's awesome.
But I went to a couple of coffee shops, and at 20, I felt that limitless, just like anything could happen, any conversation could happen, just the magic of possibility, and the unknown was exciting. And it was just like anybody could be my friend and I could make connections, and it felt very inspiring. Whereas to fast forward to when I moved to Jacksonville from Sarasota, I was leaving a very tight-knit community where I felt very, very supported. And I happened to be going through a separation at the time. And we had kind of separated before we moved, but we were still living together. And so the whole move and every plan was very tenuous and stressful because the partnership was dissolving between my husband and I. And so when I got to Jacksonville, I had that curiosity, but I was 38 and I was essentially a single woman at 38, which is not the easiest way to make friends.
Yeah.
Couples don't love 38-year-old single ladies.
Oh.
They just don't. They're like, the wife is not a fan, and the husband's like, you're going to get me in trouble. Like, no,
Yeah.
nothing to do with this. And so you're just like, cool, I just wanted to be friends with the wife. I wasn't even, okay. And then the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
Which was a great time to meet people.
Oh, it was.
So, such a great time. And to spice things up, I decided to break my ankle. Being facetious, but I did. I broke it and ended up, having to go to the hospital, which is the last place you want to be during the pandemic. And so I just was sitting in my thoughts. Like I couldn't get around. It was a bad break. And so I think part of that, coupled with the isolation of the pandemic, coupled with not having a community or any skin to lose in the game. Like if I did comedy in Sarasota, I think it would have been more intimidating because people would have shown up to support.
Right.
And then I have this like, ooh, did I maintain like their image
Becomes
of me?
some weird expectation game.
Yeah. Was I the funniest person? Of course not. It was my first time. So being in Jacksonville afforded that loneliness really presented a fertile ground for me to pursue something that was uncomfortable and push past it because I was so hungry for community. So I had always loved stand-up comedy, and I had been told when I was teaching at Painting with a Twist here in Sarasota that customers would be like, oh, you should do stand-up. And I would say, here's the thing. You paid $35 for a painting. You got a painting. And then I was funny.
Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah.
You pay $5 for comedy. I better be funnier than Louis C.K.
Right.
Like you're like, make me laugh. Like
it's such a different scenario you're setting up.
Right. So I just thought, well, it doesn't work outside the framework of me already being on stage for some other reason. And so I just was like, I'll just listen to stand up more than music. And so I'd put it on Pandora, I'd put it on Spotify and just listen to stand up constantly. And then I guess I saw something on Facebook about an open mic, and a friend, Natalie, who's from Sarasota, was in town visiting me. And she was like, I'll go with you. Let's do it. And so I did, and the very first time I went, nothing happened because I didn't get called up. It was one of those, like, you got to be known to get called up,
yeah.
And so nobody called me up. So I left just like, I had my camera, like, ready to record. I was, like, ready for 3 hours, just like any minute it'll happen, and then it didn't. But then I went to another mic, and I got up there, got off stage and I was like, I have no idea what I said. I just blacked out. Like, that was so incredible, but I have no idea what happened. And that was 3 years ago. So it's been, I call it the cheapest high. It is so fun to do. It's also heartbreaking, but comedians are, albeit a lot of them look like Lord of the Ring extras.
Yeah.
But they are great to have as friends. I love the friends that I've made through the comedy community, and I see myself doing comedy probably for the rest of my life. It feels like drawing to me in the sense that it doesn't come as easily because I haven't been doing it as long, but it feels like something I just can't step away from. And maybe that'll change with age, but right now it just is something that if I take a break for 2 weeks, I feel it and I don't like it.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
I want to backtrack just a tiny bit because you mentioned the friends that you've made and now making a community. It seems like a theme that you really do not necessarily need to, but understand that you thrive more when you have a community of like-minded people or people you can be inspired from at any rate. When you were first in Jacksonville and you're talking about breaking your ankle and going through the pandemic, you mentioned the word loneliness. Did you see it or feel it as loneliness, or was it more like a solitude thing?
It felt like loneliness because I don't think that I have completely mastered the idea of solitude. I still try to escape it. And so it didn't feel like a purposeful solitude at the time, even though it was very fertile producing, like it made me very productive. But at the time, all I was aware of was the discomfort and like, I don't like this. I don't like, because I'm not close to my family. I'm not close to the parents that are con artists that decided, I know, why scam other people when we can scam our daughter, and then like stole my credit. And like my dad called when I was 15 and I hadn't heard from him in a really long time. And he's like, hey, how's it going? He quickly brought the conversation around to my social security number, and he wanted to get it so he could claim me as a dependent. And I knew he was paying $200 a month for my child support. And so I was like, are you crazy? Like, I'm not, one, gonna give you this information, and two, like, the gall.
Right.
The gall.
Right.
I don't know what took me there, but the parents. So yeah, they both were shiesty, and then I changed my name legally around the time that my daughter was born, even though I changed it socially in 2007. I legally changed it in 2013, mainly because I wanted twofold. One, I wanted to have my own legacy and have a name that represented my future and not something that somebody else had prescribed for me.
Right.
I very much wanted to delineate from what I came from and what I intended to do with my life. And also because the trans community in Asheville had educated me on such a compassionate, amazing level about how I walk on different sidewalks. I'm quite poor, but because I'm feminine, because I'm white, because I'm thin, I fit into, or I am allowed into rooms or spaces that other people aren't allowed. And that bothered me. That made me like, no, treat me poorly. Like, don't give me better treatment. It's like during the civil rights movement, if you're dating a person of color, like, you're like, don't be nice to me. Like, treat us both badly if you must treat somebody badly.
Right, yeah.
I don't want better treatment. And so which does no good, but I changed my name so that those people that don't accept trans people or masculine women or feminine men that do accept me would have to do it and choke on my name a little bit, you know, like Tucker, that doesn't that's not pretty and feminine. And I'm like, I know, say it again.
But how did that feel when you finally made the transition legally? Was it like, here, now, was that like a very
It was
big
amazing because I
relief?
did have some people question it, like who, the South especially, is just like, who gave you that right? Like, who gave you permission to change your name? And I'm like, $400.
Yeah, exactly.
And a bunch of paperwork. Like,
yeah, that's really, I think, the thing that people don't understand. It's more paperwork than it is anything else.
Yeah, it really is. They didn't cover that on Friends with Phoebe.
No.
Phoebe was like, I just changed my name. I'm like, it's a little more paperwork than that.
So you get to that point and you're
Mm-hmm.
feeling a little bit of relief, maybe feeling like you're getting into your own skin.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to go through the separation and the move and all that stuff.
Right.
Okay, so you're still got yourself in this ebb and flow of,
Yes.
oh man. Okay, so when you get to the point where your friend comes down and you go out and do the first open mic that you actually get on stage, was this like a profound footing moment?
I think it was. I was so excited to have tried it and not spontaneously combusted or, something gone wrong,
Yeah, I
just
was gonna say,
exploded on the spot.
Given your past, I mean, it
Given
could have
my
been
past.
possible.
Right.
Let's not
My
rule
mom
out-
could have shown up and followed my act.
Let's not rule out combustion.
So it was a place to really, like, a monumental step in finding my footing in Jacksonville. I will say that Jacksonville has a lot of opportunities that I feel are not necessarily as possible in Sarasota just because of its size.
Yeah.
We can have a mic every single night of the week, except for Saturday and Sunday or Friday and Saturday when we usually have shows. So Sarasota just can't sustain that in the same way that they can't have multiple gay bars, it seems, for some reason, even though the money's
Or any
there.
legitimate music venue.
Or any, right. Yeah, I don't even want to.
Yeah. That's a
we
different
have
can.
one comedy club in Jacksonville, and it's rough. It's rough. But even still, we do have a lot of access to the mics. But Jacksonville's not the end of the story. Like, I don't want to stay in Jacksonville after Talia's grown, after my daughter is grown. I want to take these skills, and I don't know if it sounds weak to say, but I would love to live in a blue state. It's been a minute, and it would be nice for a little bit of change. I don't know what's in the cards because Asheville always calls to me, and it's definitely not a blue state. But anyway, I
No,
probably
that
shouldn't
pocket, that you're in that tiny pocket, you're a little bluish.
Mm-hmm.
You're a little purplish in Asheville.
It is. It's really special, but just outside of it is a lot of anger. And
Right.
so when I lived there in 2009, we had a march because one of our friends got beaten up right in Montford, which was right outside of downtown Asheville. And we did a 400-person march that said, "We are not bashful." And moms with strollers came out, and it was a great response to something that shouldn't have happened, but it does remind you that they passed terrible laws about bathroom rights for trans people. And so to live in that state, you're still fighting kind of the structure and the powers that be, which is important and good to do. I don't know if I want to do it when I'm 60.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it is a taxing game. It is a taxing battlefield.
Yeah.
And I guess Jacksonville, even despite any of its politics or whatever, I can get a little bit more diversity just because of the sheer size, just like you said.
Right. Difference in audiences. Black audiences are something that I haven't necessarily mastered because I'm low energy. I'm very sardonic and kind of like Beth Stelling. I'm not like Sarah Silverman in the fact that she's bubbly and cutesy, even though she's like bitterly funny. She's still like adorable, and
Yeah.
I'm just not that kindergarten teacher.
Well, she can
who's, like,
she can voice Vanellope on Wreck-It Ralph.
Right. Yeah, I actually am looking into voiceovers and starting to do that kind of thing now, because I think AI is all these Carl Jung videos I listen to. I'm like, those are AI voices. Like, what are you doing? Get somebody with some texture. I don't care who it is. Like, I
Right.
changed the accent on my Maps device on my phone because I want texture in the voice. Like I want it to have an accent from a location. So that is very important to me. And so my comedy tends to have as much texture and storytelling as possible because that's what I'm inspired by. And they say it takes 7 to 10 years for your taste to catch up to your ability, which is very humbling.
Yeah, right.
Because you're like, okay, I did a 20-minute set and it went pretty well, but it's not, I don't want to post 20 minutes and be like, hey, everybody, look at every minute.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to chop that up and be like, hey, look at this, where the crowd popped. So.
Well, you mentioned a good word there, the inspired by. And when you said you started diving into comedy stand-up playlists and things, what were some of the first comedians or what were some of the things about deliveries or setups that you started to resonate with? You were like, hey, this is funny to me.
So it would start when I was 16. I had the best friend ever, Alex Zalo, who is just a phenomenal human being and probably the funniest person I've ever met.
Shout out, Alex. I haven't heard that. Oh, I miss him.
The funniest person.
Yeah, yes.
If anybody should be a stand-up comedian, it should be him. But
yeah, he's got
just
wit that just
so natural
yes.
that it would almost be limiting to put him on stage because he just in his natural state is so funny. So
oh man,
two things
that's great.
About that. He introduced me to Mitch Hedberg via a burned CD and was like, here, check this out. And I was like, what? It was so accessible and I wasn't ready for George Carlin. I wasn't ready for like, hey, the world's really messed up. Let's talk about it and like chew on it. Mitch
How
Hedberg.
about when an escalator is broken, it can only become stairs?
Yeah.
We'll start
it's like
there.
Deep thoughts.
Yeah.
It's like so easy to jump into his comedy. And I think him being a complicated, wounded person himself was compelling and resonating. And, that translation of pain into humor was really compelling to me, whether or not I knew it. And I do think that sometimes I use comedy to try to learn how to write so that I can someday write a memoir or a screenplay or something that is, I'm more drawn to a screenplay because it's more visual, but something that exercises some of the stories, but in a way that's not a burden to the reader. I want it to be something that's like relates, but doesn't make them put it down and like, man, I need a break. That was really heavy. I want it to be
more cathartic than burdensome.
Yeah, for sure. So comedy is teaching me how to do that and translating a lot of these difficult stories about just different life experiences. I have one joke where I'm like, hey guys, 2004 was a special year for me because I got a breast reduction and it was a really great experience, mainly because the coolest part is it makes men sad. It does. And I find that if you're on a bad date and it's not even true, you can say it and it will just bum men out. And like a single tear will roll down their face as they're like, how big were they? And you're just like, don't worry about it. They were huge.
I had time machine plans.
So I try to appeal to the female crowd, but a lot of times as a comedian, your presentation is a lot of what they're ingesting. And so I find that I have to be real self-deprecating, because being thin, white, whatever category I fall into makes other women in the crowd pull back a little bit.
This is the lady you want to make friends with and her husband, essentially.
I want to make friends with the lady in the audience, and all she can think of is, my husband better not laugh.
Yeah.
So, I have that to contend with, and the comedy scene is at first a little bit like, if you're attractive, what on earth do you need comedy for? you already have being attractive. Like, go be attractive. Don't be a comedian. Leave that.
This is our nerdy dorky lane.
Right, exactly. So there is a lot of suspicion of like, are you doing this just because you want attention, or just because you know, are trying to wear revealing clothes on stage, or whatever your intention might be. But I love comedy. Like, I love it. And
so the first time that, and I don't mean to cut you off, but the first time that you went and did the stand-up where you got called on stage, did you have stuff written? Had you been actively preparing for a period of time before this?
Yes, I did. I had like a set list of like basically stories I wanted to tell. And I did my set at home, which is so much harder than doing it on stage. Like, speaking to a friend, a like set, and trying to like do the voices and like timing everything. It's so hard because you're staring at one set of eyeballs and their face is everything. And every time their face does something, you're like reading it.
There's no looking away.
There's no looking away, and there's no dark, there's no spotlight, there's no like anything that's making the crowd like separate a little bit. And my friend, bless her heart, afterwards, she was like, that was kind of sad. And I was like, okay, that's not what I'm going for. That's exactly the opposite of what I was trying to do. So I did. I went up there and I did pretty well because you have this like early blind enthusiasm because you don't know what it feels like to bomb. You don't know that blanking on stage is possible. You haven't experienced these things yet. And so you kind of go up there with this just like tons of enthusiasm, and they light you and you're like, okay, I did it.
I'm here. What do I do now?
Yeah.
What do I do with my hands?
And then you like, you're supposed to record everything so that you can learn from it.
Right.
I paid somebody one time for some comedy advice from a female comedian in Nashville, and she was like, the main piece of advice is don't post anything the first 2 years. And I was like, I'm not taking that advice because I wanted to learn. I wanted to like show my progress and get feedback, and I didn't care if I embarrassed myself.
And
I
it's
just wanted
hard
to
to
get
bide
it
that kind of time now. It doesn't. 2 years doesn't seem like a long time, but it can be in certain instances.
Yeah, there's a really weird switch that's happening where some people are like, you need an online following. Like, that is more important than your reel. Like, if you have 200,000 followers, a booker is going to look at that more than your reel, which is crazy because your reel should have quite a bit to do with whether you're booked. But you have to find your lane and kind of figure out whether you want to chase followers, whether you want to chase being funny, whether you can do both of those things at the same time, whether you're going to use TikTok to post clips or you're going to speak directly to the camera. How personal or immediate do you want your relationship to be with your audience? I'd like to get to the point where I'm talking into the camera directly, but I think I need to hone in on who my audience is a little bit more as I continue my progression, find my people.
Well, they kind of reveal themselves to you as you do it more.
Right. I say find them, but just keep doing it and then find me.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mutual finding.
Yeah.
It's an equal opportunity finding.
It is. And I'm hosting a show on Thursdays every week now at a gay bar in Murray Hill and Riverside, are these two little artist communities in Jacksonville. And right in between is this little gay bar. And it's growing. It's got a small crowd because there's a really established gay bar over here and a really established one over here. So it's kind of like fighting for customers. It's a bear bar. So I bring in all these guys and the bartender's like, this is great. Love it. So running that show has really been great because I get to practice hosting, and hosting is something that I really enjoy doing. I really love being able to touch the microphone multiple times. When you are doing a set, typically on a show, you get up there, you do your 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever your allotment is, and you get off stage and you immediately are like, I didn't say this. I forgot this tag.
Yeah.
Oh man, why didn't I say that part? And when you're hosting, you get to recoup. You get to be like, oh yeah, Brian was talking about this. I wanted to say something that related to it. So I love hosting in that way because you really get to kind of interact with the crowd and play
Plus,
off
it gives
of,
you a nice spot in the community, too.
yeah,
know.
not everybody wants to host. A lot of the OGs, the people that have been doing it 10 or 15 years, they certainly are capable, but that's not really what they want to do. They often do it out of necessity, but that's something I want to really be good at by year 5. I'll be hosting at the biggest show I've done in Jacksonville in July at Paper Route, and I'm super excited about that. It's in St. Augustine, and the room is run by Marcus Crespo, and it's just a great space. And I'm really excited to not
Nice.
only be hosting my show on Thursdays, but like be able to host another show and really take it to the next level and continue doing that. And
I was going to say it's all about the right foot, left foot.
yeah.
So I'm very curious about the very first time you put the pen to paper and start writing something. You said you were writing before you went to do the open mics. Did you do that with the intention of you might perform this, or was that solely an exercise of I just want to start writing stuff? Because that's like kind of the rubber hit the road moment.
Yeah, no, I'm very purpose driven, and I don't write unless I'm writing to someone. Like I'll write a letter. When I was religious, I would write journals to God because I thought I was having a conversation with someone. So everything is purpose driven, and so I really was writing with the intention of like, this is what I'm going to use, as opposed to just like free writing and then extrapolating something. I have a lot of anecdotes that are rueful, right? Just like, oh man, that happened. Yikes for you.
Truth is stranger than fiction.
Truth is so strange. One of my favorites is what rating are we?
What do you mean?
Are we PG-13?
We're free for all.
Free for all. Okay. Favorite is I was in San Francisco. I had been dating women, and then I switched teams, and I dated my first guy, and he had to be a prince. Surely. And he took me on a romantic walk to what turned out to be the library. And then in the comfort of the library, in a quiet nook, he told me that I had contracted a non-refundable STD. And he did that in the library so that I would be quiet. Because he was that tough.
Good Lord.
Yeah. And then another...
That's the shit you can't make up.
Right. Yeah. And that's what is compelling, because it's not a joke that somebody else is telling. It's not... Oh man, can you believe women drivers? Oh gosh, if I hear that again.
Airports these days,
traveling and Delta, and it's just a topic that you're like, where is she going with this? Like, what is she gonna say? And then, oh man, I didn't expect that.
Do you find that fun?
I do, yeah, I do. I really enjoy taking those stories and empowering myself through them, because it was not a happy moment, but like telling it is, you're like reveling in it. Like, can you believe this man was so scared of me that he took me to the library? And he didn't just take me to any library. He took me to the San Francisco Civic Library, where people are doing heroin at the table next to us. Like, why would you think the library would care about me being noisy? Like, you're so, oh my gosh. And then another one, I was in Hawthorne, and I was in a sex store, and there was something behind the curtain, and I'm 40, so I was like, I'm a big girl. I want to know what's going on back there. Like, what is it?
Yeah.
So I asked the cashier, and they're like, oh yeah, it's just video booths and stuff. And I'm like, all right, I still am curious. Can I get change? And they're like, yeah, it's $5. So I go back there. find an unoccupied booth, first of all. Second of all,
Worth noting.
You put your $5 in and nothing happens. Camera doesn't come on, or TV video doesn't come on. It just takes your money and stays dark. And it's a dark little alcove because you're supposed to watch a video. And I turned on my flashlight and I'm like, I'm an American citizen. I'm going to get my money back. This is ridiculous. I came all the way out here. Like, what is going on? Well, turns out using the flashlight on your phone is the international signal to use the hole in the wall that I had neglected to notice. And I did leave a man behind that day. I was not a patriot. But those kinds of things.
Sometimes curiosity can be satisfied, not the whole way.
Yeah. No, I was just like, wow. And I turned around and people were observing the situation as well. So I'm glad that it went the way it did. Yeah, but I'm curious, and I have these stories that have happened, and I know that those stories will continue to happen because I'm just one of those people that's like, got to pull back the curtain, got to see what's going on. And
was the idea to do comedy in itself that?
Pull back the curtain? I think so. I think I just was so enamored by the fact that, in my opinion, comedians are not just entertainers, they're truth tellers. They say the things that other people can't say. They say the things that would get someone in trouble or could cost somebody something. And I feel like they have this standard of like, I'm going to say it even if it's controversial. And, like, not to make it too dramatic, but Hannibal Buress was using comedy and he joked about Bill Cosby. And that's what broke the story, like being truth tellers and like talking about what's really going on and holding society's feet to the fire a little bit, or at least our leaders. And I think laughing in this super divided country, super partisan, super, that person is my enemy, even though they're my neighbor, that kind of nonsense. When you can get everybody to laugh, it is literally healing. It literally makes people treat people differently. And that feels really, really empowering. And I think to bring it full circle, when I was trying to go to South Africa and I was trying to go to seminary and I was trying to do all these things that would benefit someone, it came from this very, it was a sincere place, but it was a artificial, like, it wasn't sustainable. And so now I feel like if I do comedy well, I make people laugh about things that they can relate to, or they can be glad their daughter didn't take a path. I have a joke about trying to strip and I made $13, which was not very much money in 2009 after the economy crashed. It's not like it was back in the 30s where I'm like, whoa, $13. So I did. I made $13, and I tell parents, I'm like, just if you're worried about your daughter getting on the pole, just know she may not make the team. Because I didn't. So, and I was 20. I wasn't even like 40. Swinging my old body parts at them. I was brand new. So it was amateur night in South Carolina, and there were a lot of girls on the floor. So it was probably for the best.
So, well, it just seems like this curtain pulling back is it's a reoccurring thing.
Yeah.
So you get to the point now where you're doing the comedy thing, and you realize that there is some power in it to be able to say things you wouldn't be able to say otherwise, or at least there's a unique avenue in conversation that being on stage permits. Mm-hmm. I am, just my aside, I'm a big Bill Hicks fan. Like,
Okay.
I know all of his stuff. He's kind of my ethos in life too.
Yeah.
And I feel now, one of the things I say a lot is we don't have a Bill Hicks. We don't have anybody that can get on stage and say things like your children aren't special and because Hulk Hogan walks the earth, I pray for nuclear holocaust. Like, these are things I find hilarious, but now I feel like you can't say.
Are you familiar with Jeselnik?
I'm not.
Anthony Jeselnik? I think you would really like him. He's very not dogmatic, but he toes like a line that is controversial and dark for some people, but in a way that's very truth-telling. So
Because ultimately I find those things to be really liberating and, like you said, a good ways to find common ground. And it's like when we can kind of laugh at the absurdity of some of the things that have siloed us off. Seems like that's not so much a thing anymore. So you being around, this more contemporaneously than me, obviously, and things I pay attention to, this may sound like a blanket question or a dumb question, but what's funny?
I think I've never heard that question in the context of comedy, which is really interesting because it seems like we dance around it with our books and our podcasts and different things that we use to educate ourselves. But what is funny is, I think, so individual to each person. What's funny to me is not physical comedy. I can't stand physical comedy.
You don't want to throw yourself through a coffee table?
Oh my gosh, it makes me just withdraw. Like, I immediately am like, this is not for me. But I love George Carlin.
Yeah.
Because when I hear his comedy posthumously in any capacity, I chew on it for days. And that to me is like such an incredible skill to have so much layered into your set that people are literally chewing on it and trying to extrapolate like all the things that you've put in there. All the meanings and all the subtext and all of that. That's what I would love to do. I don't know that that's going to be my skill set or the path that I take, but I definitely have more of a cerebral style in comedy than one-liners, which is one style that is pretty tried and true.
Yeah.
Topical one-liners, very tried and true. It's fairly formulaic where you can figure it out. But that just doesn't stick with me. It's like candy. It doesn't entertain me. And so I want the stuff that I'm thinking about a couple days later. And so I do really aim for having more cerebral comedy, even if it does leave people behind. I'd rather have a crowd that appreciates and gets what I'm saying than like a huge crowd that likes it, but I don't like it.
Right.
It's that artistic integrity, which is why I'm poor.
Well, I think that happens. So do you find that to be like, I guess, the limitations or the whatever conscientiousness you have to have with people's attention spans? Like, if you don't write one-liners or simple quips or something like that, that you know damn right well you're going to lose some of those people. Like
Ask
you
it
said.
again.
Like when you go into your writing knowing you're going to do something a little bit more cerebral and a little bit more challenging, is that something you face right out of the gate, that the limited attention span that we're all living in now, damn right well that those people just...
Yes, I do know that I'm going to lose people. They say men have like 20 seconds to capture the crowd and women have about 10 seconds to like grab them before they go away or they dismiss you. It's similar to paintings. As a former professional painter, people tend to look at paintings for a second, which is very demoralizing when you spend 6 months on a painting. But yeah, there is a short attention span. You got to get them right away. I was doing one of my first shows, and a guy was talking to me while I was setting up my camera, and he was like, "Oh, are you recording for your boyfriend?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not. I'm recording for myself." And then I got up there, and he's like, I'm like, "Hey guys, my name's Tucker." And he's like, "Hurry up." And I looked at him and I told a joke real fast. And I was like, "Was that good? Was that fast enough?" Like, what the? That is just so funny. But people do. They expect you to like turn it on instantly.
What do you think the nature of that is?
I think it's the entitlement of like, dance for me, monkey. I paid money. No. You know, I used to do senior centers with comedy, and that was really difficult because I would do 30, 35 minutes of material to people that were like, you know, just like not responsive at all. Or would
That's
like
a comedy special in and of
wheel
itself.
out of your set mid-set, and you're just like, cool. Or they would interrupt and be like, "Can you sing or dance? Because this is really boring." And you're like, I can't even crowd work you. I can't even like lean into it and be like, "Oh, let's talk about you for a second."
Yeah.
So it was tricky doing that, but it was.
What a learning experience, though.
Seriously, yeah.
Maybe
it really was.
that's like an untold tip for comedians. You want to test your work, go to a senior center.
Yeah, yeah.
Did someone give you that idea, or were you just like, "Hey, I'll do this"?
No, well, I was collaborating with this new comedian who had formerly been an alcoholic and then stopped drinking and picked up comedy, and he picked it up with the ferocity of an addiction. And so he was like, "Let's do this, let's do this, let's do this." And I kind of lent some legitimacy to a new comedian because I'd been in the scene longer, and I do posters and I can ask people to be on shows and stuff, use my friendships. And so he and I started doing senior centers, and he would essentially go into the senior center. We would together and pitch them the idea, and got an advertisement in like a senior magazine, and did that for about 6 months where we were doing it weekly. And I am all set.
Yeah, that's too awesome, though. You got to get what you can get out of it and move along. That's too good, though. Have you ever seen the movie Death to Smoochie?
I don't think so.
Oh my God, it's a great movie with Edward Norton and Robin Williams and Jon Stewart. But at any rate, one of the very early scenes is Edward Norton.
I love all those people.
Yeah, it's a very good movie, or it's one of my favorites. But in the beginning, Edward Norton is performing as his Smoochie character that he's kind of cobbled together, and he's just getting himself gigs, and he's performing at the methadone clinic, and everybody's passed out.
Yeah. So that would be a kava bar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've ever played music in a kava bar.
I've only been in a kava bar once in my life, and it was in the middle of the day to promote. So
it is a nightmare because the age bracket is like 18 to 19. And then you have a few 40-year-old burnouts who are like, "I'm not allowed to have drugs."
Yeah, right.
And you have these 18-year-olds, and then you have these burnouts, and you're just like, this is the worst venue to do comedy at, because the 18-year-olds are just like, "I don't get your sex jokes, and I don't get your life jokes, and I don't get this reference." And then the burnouts are just drinking mud water, like the sand stirred. Kava bars are a discouraging place, but man, did they like to host open mics.
I suppose.
Yeah.
That's a comedy bit unto itself. Mm-hmm. That's like a sketch. Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to get you out of here on something fun, but there's too many fun questions when comedy is what your horizon is. But the easiest question is, and I guess the one that's most telling as to where you want this road to go is, if you could pick a stage and you're going to do a headline set, where do you want to play? Where is your like Mecca you want to see Tucker Lenora on the marquee?
So the Comedy Store is like the pinnacle. The Comedy Store to me, Mitzi, Pauly Shore's her son.
Yep.
the Comedy Store is it for me. Like, I just think that's the mountaintop.
Have you been there at all?
I haven't.
Okay.
I spent time in San Francisco. I drove through LA, but I wasn't a comedian at the time, and I didn't pursue any of those like activities, but I would love to go. I'd love to see a show. My favorite Comedy Store show is Dane Cook. It was his night, and Dave Chappelle came in, and Dave Chappelle was told, like, hey, we're only going to give you 10 minutes because it's Dane's night. And he's like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm Dave Chappelle. It's the height of the Chappelle show. Like,
Yeah.
what does Dane's night mean?
Yeah.
And he's like, fine, 10 minutes, that's fine. So he does 10 minutes. He doesn't go over, which most headliners would be like, sure thing.
Yeah.
I'm
Right.
just going to do my time.
I was going to say, once the mic's in my hand,
Once the
game
mic
over.
is in your hand, yeah, what are they going to do? So he does his 10 minutes. He ends it, and he says, I never do this, but I'm going to go outside and smoke a cigarette. If anybody wants to join me, feel free. The place emptied out.
Oh, brutal.
I love it. I love that story. So Comedy Store would be it, but
But that's
most
that comedian
realistically,
mind. That's being quick-witted. That's one move ahead.
yeah, I'll do 10 minutes, but I'll take the audience with me. I also would love to perform at the Orange Peel in Asheville. David Cross filmed his special at the Orange Peel, and it is such a special space for me. I saw Peaches perform there, and Asheville is just a special place. So I would love to perform in a city where I feel like, come on, all my friends.
Yeah.
You know, but the Comedy Store would be, that would be a huge accomplishment.
Well, I'm sure you'll get there.
Thank you.
Well, Tucker, I can't thank you enough for coming down.
This
I'm
was
super grateful to hear
amazing.
from you. You are always welcome back. If
Thank
you
you.
got a show here, you got something you're doing, anything you're doing, your family, you're always welcome.
Thank you. You too. Let me
Awesome.
know if you're in town in Jacksonville.
Yeah, of course.
Cool. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Yeah, perfect.